In the midst of a winter storm, amid the icy, silent expanse of the Midwest mountains, John, a retired firefighter who had spent years rushing into emergencies, lived alone in a small wooden cabin set against barren lands. That night felt longer than usual, and his only companion was the warm, flickering glow of the fire in his hearth, mingling with the lingering loneliness of days gone by. Suddenly, amidst the howling wind and the crunch of snow underfoot, a gentle knock resonated through the stillness. It was a familiar sound, not the roar of the storm, but a delicate, urgent plea, as if a creature in need stood at a crossroads. Despite having faced countless life and death situations, John felt an unusual stirring in his heart. Approaching the door, he noticed a faint light outside that revealed a trembling figure, a gaunt German shepherd with eyes full of skepticism, accompanied by two very young puppies. In that eerie, snowy night, surrounded by overwhelming silence, John found himself captivated by their vulnerability and courage. They deserved to be saved. At that moment, he knew that a crucial decision was about to change, not only the fate of these forsaken souls, but also his own life. In the midst of a raging snowstorm over Alaska's wild mountains, as biting winds sliced through the frozen landscape, John, a seasoned former firefighter, took refuge in his modest wooden cabin. The flickering flames in the fireplace not only warmed the lonely space, but also rekindled vivid memories of the days he had bravely battled through relentless storms. Suddenly, John's heart, though used to danger, was struck with a powerful surge, as if the entire universe were sending him an unignorable message. With slow, deliberate steps, he moved toward the door, where the light outside revealed the silhouette of a lost soul, a dog with sorrowful eyes, accompanied by two young puppies trembling from the cold. In the dark of night, as a relentless snowstorm raged and a thick fog blanketed the vast expanse of Alaska, John stood silently by the window of his modest wooden cabin, gazing out at the landscape where the wind still howled and endless snow stretched as far as the eye could see. An eerie silence settled over the space, broken only by the soft crackle of the fire in the hearth and the profound stillness of the frozen land. Suddenly, a gentle knock echoed at the door, as if someone were timidly seeking entry, followed by feeble whimpers, pitiful cries blending with the howling wind. An indescribable feeling welled up inside him. Hastily setting his coffee cup aside, John, his face etched with tension, hurried toward the door. His heart pounding fiercely in his chest, the sounds grew ever more distinct, shattering the quiet of his warm refuge. In the midst of a winter storm, amid the icy, silent expanse of the Midwest mountains, John, a retired firefighter who had spent years rushing into emergencies, lived alone in a small wooden cabin set against barren lands. That night felt longer than usual, and his only companion was the warm, flickering glow of the fire in his hearth, mingling with the lingering loneliness of days gone by. Suddenly, amidst the howling wind and the crunch of snow underfoot, a gentle knock resonated through the stillness. It was a familiar sound, not the roar of the storm, but a delicate, urgent plea, as if a creature in need stood at a crossroads. Despite having faced countless life and death situations, John felt an unusual stirring in his heart. Approaching the door, he noticed a faint light outside that revealed a trembling figure, a gaunt German shepherd with eyes full of skepticism, accompanied by two very young puppies. In that eerie, snowy night, surrounded by overwhelming silence, John found himself captivated by their vulnerability and courage. They deserved to be saved. At that moment, he knew that a crucial decision was about to change, not only the fate of these forsaken souls, but also his own life. In the midst of a raging snowstorm over Alaska's wild mountains, as biting winds sliced through the frozen landscape, John, a seasoned former firefighter, took refuge in his modest wooden cabin. The flickering flames in the fireplace not only warmed the lonely space, but also rekindled vivid memories of the days he had bravely battled through relentless storms. Suddenly, John's heart, though used to danger, was struck with a powerful surge, as if the entire universe were sending him an unignorable message. With slow, deliberate steps, he moved toward the door, where the light outside revealed the silhouette of a lost soul, a dog with sorrowful eyes, accompanied by two young puppies trembling from the cold. In the dark of night, as a relentless snowstorm raged and a thick fog blanketed the vast expanse of Alaska, John stood silently by the window of his modest wooden cabin, gazing out at the landscape where the wind still howled and endless snow stretched as far as the eye could see. An eerie silence settled over the space, broken only by the soft crackle of the fire in the hearth and the profound stillness of the frozen land. Suddenly, a gentle knock echoed at the door, as if someone were timidly seeking entry, followed by feeble whimpers, pitiful cries blending with the howling wind. An indescribable feeling welled up inside him. Hastily setting his coffee cup aside, John, his face etched with tension, hurried toward the door, his heart pounding fiercely in his chest. The sounds grew ever more distinct, shattering the quiet of his warm refuge. John stood motionless, his eyes fixed intently on the fragile figure emerging amid the raging blizzard. Every passing second felt heavier, as the branches stretched out like razor-sharp sticks, and the biting wind howled with menace. The German shepherd, its eyes wide with desperate pleading, refused to budge, while two shivering puppies huddled close to their mother, their weary faces waiting for a miracle. Though he knew that opening the door would mean inviting unforeseen dangers into his home, John's heart blazed with a fierce resolve. His years on the firefighting team had taught him to confront peril head-on, but never had he felt such an acute awareness of the battle between life and death as he did now, amid the storm. His heart pounded wildly, not from fear, but from a desperate call to action. He could not stand idly by and risk losing the chance to save a life teetering on the brink. John knew that a single act, a choice to open his door, could change everything, rescuing these three fragile souls from the icy grip of death. Though the land had long been shrouded in darkness, now he saw a tiny light shining on the other side of that door. He slowly moved toward the door, reaching for the knob. His heart pounded in his chest, filled with worry. Yet in the end, he decided to open it. As the door began to creak in the absolute silence, a bone-chilling cold burst into the house, piercing through John's extra thick layers. But the footsteps crunching on the snow outside seemed to wash away any lingering hesitation in him. The mother dog remained still, her eyes fixed on him, full of fear, yet holding a spark of hope, as if she were seeking salvation in the hands of this man. "Come in. You won't die in this storm," John whispered, and the warmth and determination in his voice caused the mother dog to take a cautious step back, its tail drooping just a little. Finally, though with some hesitation, the mother dog stepped inside with fragile, tentative steps. Her savior had arrived, and as the door closed behind her, it marked the end of a painful journey. Even though John knew that opening the door might invite unforeseen troubles, he stood before the cold wooden barrier, his heart beating furiously like a silent warning. In that moment, saturated with hesitation and indecision, the fragile gaze of the shepherd mother and her two trembling puppies ignited a profound compassion within him. With unsteady steps, he moved closer, each second stretching out amidst the relentless blizzard. The warm, golden light from inside the cabin shone like a beacon, beckoning and comforting the weary soul amid the storm. Moved by the shared longing for shelter, John took a deep breath, gripped the doorknob tightly, and slowly pushed the door open. Immediately, the biting winds tore through the air. Yet in that moment, his eyes met those of the mother dog in a silent communion, as if two souls were seeking solace amid the raging storm. Without another moment's hesitation, he beckoned warmly, extending an invitation that felt like a promise to protect these fragile lives. Stepping over the threshold, beneath the warm glow of the fireplace, the storm outside seemed to quiet down, giving way to a melody of hope and new beginnings. In that moment, John resolved that while danger might always be lurking, compassion is far stronger than fear, opening a new, meaningful chapter in all of their lives. Inside the warm cabin, amidst the radiant glow of the fireplace and the soft murmur of the wind outside, John not only provided the animal family with bowls of warm water and nutritious food, but also shared his heartfelt compassion. Gently placing a bowl next to the mother dog, his tender voice murmured like a soothing lullaby, "Don't worry, this is our safe haven now." At first, the mother dog, her eyes filled with guarded caution, simply observed John's every move, as if weighing whether she could trust this stranger. But over the long nights by the hearth, as the wind gradually quieted and the once biting gusts turned into mere whispers outside the window, her wariness slowly melted away. John carefully recounted stories of his life, of hard-fought days and undying hope, illuminating the cabin with the warm light of empathy and shared experience. Then, on a quiet, peaceful night, a strange sound from the window suddenly sent a shiver through the room. It wasn't merely the rustling of the wind, it was the soft tread of footsteps, a reminder of a sorrowful past. In that moment, the mother dog rose to her feet, her eyes ignited with a fierce determination to protect the small lives beside her. She moved toward the door, as if ready to confront the ghosts of her past, or perhaps inviting those painful memories to face her once more. Though a chill of anxiety coursed through his heart, John stepped closer, his compassion unwavering. He gently placed a hand on her back, silently assuring her that even if the past were to return, they now had each other. It was a moment fraught with risk, a time when initial caution gave way to a deep, sacred bond. In those precious moments, with the radiant flames flickering and the distant wind echoing, a turning point was reached in both their lives. Every gesture and every word from John not only offered comfort to the mother dog, but also helped her slowly rediscover her trust in people and in life. Though the storm outside had not yet fully abated, the cabin overflowed with hope, healing, and boundless love, a testament to the power of compassion, rising above all adversity and the pain of the past. Inside the warm cabin amid Alaska's harsh winter, John meticulously tidied up everything to be ready to care for Grace and the two trembling puppies. He gently boiled water, poured it into small bowls, and prepared a nutritious meal, carefully placing them next to Grace, the resilient German Shepherd mother. At first, Grace merely turned her head to look at John with wary eyes, as if she couldn't believe that someone could offer comfort in the midst of a fierce snowstorm. Yet, as the quiet moments by the fireplace passed, with the lively crackling of the flames and John's gentle tales of his hard-fought days in rescue work, her gaze gradually shifted from suspicion to fragile trust. Every tender gesture from John, from the way he gently patted Grace to the careful adjustment of the water bowls, spoke of a promise that here, she and her little ones would no longer have to face loneliness and the biting cold alone. The warm glow of the fire and the distant howling of the wind only served to accentuate the tenderness of that moment as the hearts of human and animal intertwined in understanding and empathy. In that very moment, under the shelter of John's humble cabin, Grace slowly let go of her fear and opened her heart to genuine kindness, a new beginning filled with hope for both of them. With worry etched in his eyes, John looked at Grace and her two puppies. They were far too weak and fragile. Grace's emaciated body seemed little more than skin draped over her bones. Every step she took was a testament to her incredible resilience, yet it carried an unmistakable air of concern. John could clearly sense the gravity of their condition, but he couldn't bear to abandon them. Each passing moment in the anxious cabin only deepened the heavy burden on his mind. Unable to delay any longer, he hurriedly picked up his phone and dialed the nearest veterinary clinic. "Hello, doctor. I need help immediately. In my cabin, I have a German Shepherd and two puppies. They're extremely weak and urgently need care," John said, his voice strained with tension. The doctor quickly took the call and instructed him to bring them in for an examination. John felt a surge of relief at the possibility of getting them the treatment they needed, yet his heart was still weighed down with worry. As he drove along the icy road, his thoughts swirled with uncertainty. Would they survive this relentless storm? Upon arriving at the clinic, everything moved swiftly. Veterinarian Dr. Harrison immediately assessed the situation and began checking on Grace and the puppies. Gently stroking the mother dog's head, Dr. Harrison's eyes conveyed both empathy and determination. "She's a fighter," he explained. Despite her severe malnutrition, she remains resilient, even though she's very weak. And the puppies, they show an incredible instinct to persevere. They will require a great deal of care, but I believe they can pull through. Hearing these words, John felt a small measure of relief fill his heart. Although it was too early to be certain of their fate, hope still burned brightly within him. Clutching Grace close as his worries began to ebb, John resolved that, with even a little hope, he would do everything in his power to protect this little family. Worried about the frail condition of Grace and her puppies, John dialed the local veterinary clinic with an anxious tone. During those tense moments of waiting, his heart pounded like the biting winds outside, each passing second deepening his fear for the little family's fate. Finally, Dr. Lisa answered, her voice warm yet resolute. She explained that Grace was suffering from severe malnutrition, a stark reminder of the harsh days she had endured. However, what moved John profoundly was Grace's indomitable spirit and fighting will. Though fragile, she remained steadfast by her pup's side, and even the weak little puppies showed a fierce determination to live with every breath. Dr. Lisa's words sparked a flame of hope in John's heart. He realized that although the road to recovery would be full of challenges, with dedicated care and genuine love, Grace and her puppies had a chance to overcome their harsh past and rediscover a warm, joyful life. In that moment, John silently vowed that no matter what obstacles lay ahead, he would never abandon this little family, for they deserved to live a life full of meaning and happiness. Over the following days, in the cozy cabin in Alaska, Grace and her puppies gradually improved. The sense of despair slowly gave way to a renewed hope as the physical scars began to fade, though the psychological marks of surviving in such a harsh environment still lingered in the mother's eyes and in every anxious gesture of the puppies. John could feel the transformation unfolding day by day. Each morning, as the first rays of sunlight crept through the cabin window and bathed the glowing fireplace, Grace would move closer to her food bowl, her eyes brimming with trust. In those moments, John couldn't help but admire her resilience. The naturally protective German Shepherd had become a formidable fighter, daring to believe in the people and the safe haven he had created for them. The puppies, too, followed in their mother's footsteps. Although still frail, they began to play and scamper around the cabin, their little ears perking up with curiosity as their soft barks filled the warm space. John often sat alone by the fireplace, watching Grace and her little ones with a heart overflowing with emotion. These moments were incredibly precious to him. His life had been so quiet and uneventful throughout his many years of solitude. John had never imagined that the arrival of Grace and her puppies could bring him such a sense of peace, joy, and renewed vitality. One foggy afternoon, as John sat by the window with a steaming cup of coffee, gazing out at the icy forest, he sensed not only the physical improvements in Grace but also a transformation in her spirit and emotions. She no longer regarded him with wary eyes, nor did she shrink away in fear whenever he approached. Instead, her gaze now radiated empathy, warmth, and the friendliness that John exuded. Day by day, as the bitter chill slowly lifted from the cabin, the bond between the canine family and John grew stronger than ever. In the evenings, Grace would curl up by the fireplace while the puppies scampered around, and John would sink into his armchair, his heart finally finding solace as the long, lonely nights of his past receded into a distant memory. More than ever, he realized that with these little lives now in his care, his cabin had become not just a refuge from the blizzard, but a true sanctuary of healing. One day, when the storm finally subsided and gentle, warm sunlight streamed in, Grace and her two puppies lay close to John, their eyes brimming with trust as he tenderly stroked her soft fur. It was a moment filled with profound meaning. From that point on, they were no longer just a man and a dog, but a real family, sharing love and hope with every heartbeat. As John reflected on this transformation, he felt both immense happiness and deep gratitude. The arrival of Grace and her little ones had breathed new life into his existence, helping him rediscover the vibrant energy he once thought was lost. Amid the icy winter and the storm raging outside, inside the small house, warm hearts beat in unison, sharing love and compassion. Over the following days, bathed in the shimmering glow of wintry afternoons, John gradually realized that his small cabin had become a sanctuary for lost souls. Each morning, after the storm had passed, he awoke to the gentle rhythm of Grace's breathing, the resilient German shepherd mother, and the playful giggles of her puppies as they slowly rediscovered their zest for life. John carefully prepared warm meals, from steaming bowls of soup to tender slices of meat, placing them beside Grace in the hope that each bite would restore the vitality slowly eroded by countless freezing nights. At first, Grace remained cautious, her eyes scanning John with wary suspicion, but with every tender gesture and soft whisper from him, that wariness gradually gave way to fragile trust. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere began to shift. The cheerful crackle of the fireplace mingled with Grace's steady breathing and the lively prancing of the puppies, composing a symphony of hope and renewed life. One afternoon, as John gently brushed the dew-dampened fur from Grace, she tilted her head ever so slightly, as if to acknowledge the kindness of her new friend. A silent yet profoundly moving moment that stirred John's heart, long accustomed to solitude. During the quiet evenings by the warm fire, John shared stories of his past, tales of trials and triumphs from his days as a firefighter. Through his words, Grace seemed to understand that this place was not only a shelter from the storm, but also a home filled with a heart brimming with love, ready to share both sorrow and joy. The puppies, growing ever more curious, would cautiously approach and gently nudge his hand, eliciting a radiant smile, a simple joy, yet one of immense value. Day by day, the bond between John and Grace deepened. She gradually became more open, allowing him to come closer, even to the point where he could tenderly stroke her face, still marked by the memories of harsh days past. Meanwhile, the puppies, maturing with each passing day, began to light up with mischievous energy, infusing the once solitary cabin with laughter and unexpected delight. Grace and her puppies not only eased John's loneliness, but also ignited a new spark of hope within him, a belief that no matter how painful the past, genuine love and heartfelt care can transform a life. In the small cabin amid the frozen wilderness, every moment became more precious, as human warmth and the essence of life intertwined to create a heroic anthem of hope, healing, and boundless affection. On a chilly morning after a snowfall, John decided to take Grace and the little puppies outside, hoping they could breathe in the fresh air after so many days inside the cabin. Even though the world beyond teemed with a vibrant new energy, Grace remained as cautious as ever. With every step she took along the fragile, snow-dusted path, her eyes scanned every shadow and corner, listening to the faint sounds of wind and falling leaves, as if every rustle might signal a lingering threat. John walked behind her, his heart heavy with concern as he realized that despite the warmth and safety of the cabin, Grace's troubled past still clung to her like a lingering shadow. She moved cautiously, stopping every few steps, her ears perked as if straining to catch the sound of unseen footsteps in the distance. The landscape around them, the low shrubs, the flickering shadows, seemed to stir painful memories within her, reminders of times she had been abandoned, of the dangers she had faced at the hands of cruelty. Suddenly, a sharp gust of wind swept through, sending fallen leaves scattering in every direction. Grace flinched as if something had reached deep into her soul. She instantly recoiled, her eyes flashing with fear, as though she had just come face to face with an old enemy from the past. John stepped closer, his hand resting gently on her back, his voice low and soothing. "Easy, girl. We're together now. Nothing can hurt us." In that moment, his concerns seemed to intertwine with Grace's old wounds, the kind of pain only those who had truly suffered could understand. Sensing the tension, the puppies instinctively crept closer to their mother, seeking shelter in her presence. Though still small and fragile, they understood that something weighed heavy in the air. John knelt down, smiling gently at them, his eyes full of hope. He knew that Grace's past was filled with scars, but he believed that, little by little, love and kindness could help her heal. With each cautious step in the crisp morning breeze, Grace began to open up just a little more, slowly finding reassurance in John's presence. Though she remained on alert, every subtle gesture, a sideways glance, a deep sigh, spoke volumes, telling John the story of the darkness she had once endured. He understood then that her fear was not something to judge or push away, but a part of her history, a past she needed to confront and eventually overcome. In that moment, beneath the overcast Alaskan sky, heavy with winter's weight, yet filled with hope, they walked forward together. Each step Grace took was more than just a movement through the snow. It was a journey toward rediscovering trust in life, a testament to the resilience that had carried her through every hardship. And beside her, John, with his warm and steady heart, slowly came to realize that while the pain of the past never truly disappears, love and genuine care have the power to open the door to a brighter future, a future where wounds heal, not instantly, but with time, patience, and the quiet strength of companionship. John stood frozen for a moment, his pulse quickening as he processed the stranger's words. The bitter wind howled through the trees, carrying with it an ominous weight, as if nature itself sensed the tension thickening in the air. The man's presence was unsettling, his stance unwavering, his eyes sharp with a dangerous determination. "That dog is mine. She ran away with her pups. They're my property, and I'm taking them back." The stranger's voice cut through the cold morning like a blade. John felt his gut tighten. The man's words dripped with entitlement, but more than that, they carried an underlying menace. A familiar feeling surged within him, the same instinct that had driven him into burning buildings, into danger, into the unknown. Except this time, he wasn't running toward a fire to save strangers. He was standing his ground to protect the family that had found solace under his roof. As the tense standoff unfolded, Grace emerged from behind the door, stepping forward with slow, deliberate movements. She lowered herself into a defensive posture, muscles taut, her body a shield between the man and her trembling pups. John's heart clenched at the sight. Grace wasn't just afraid. She was prepared to fight, not for herself, but for her children, for the home she had come to trust. But the man didn't falter. His expression hardened as he took another step forward, his voice rising with an edge of impatience. "Move," he barked. "I'm taking them, and no one can stop me." Grace's breath hitched, her chest rising and falling in quick, controlled motions. Then, without warning, a deep, guttural growl erupted from her throat, a sound so fierce and primal it sent a chill down John's spine. It was not just a growl of warning, but of defiance, of an unshakable will. This wasn't the same frightened, broken creature John had found shivering in the snow. This was a mother, a warrior, a soul who had fought too hard to let fate rip away the only thing she had left. Her amber eyes locked onto the stranger's, burning with an unspoken vow. "If you want to take what's mine, you'll have to go through me first." John's body moved before he could think. In one swift step, he positioned himself between Grace and the man, his stance firm, his voice steady. "She's not going anywhere," John said, his tone as solid as the earth beneath his feet. "And neither are her pups." Although John knew the situation could escalate into conflict, he also understood that if he didn't intervene, Grace would never back down. She would never abandon the life she had found. Taking a deep breath, he spoke, his voice calm but unwavering. "She's been through enough. She doesn't belong to anyone anymore. She belongs here. She belongs with our family." The cold wind howled through the trees, but in that moment, everything else seemed to still. The man hesitated, his steps faltering as his gaze flickered with tension and uncertainty. Then, after what felt like an eternity of silence, he scoffed, a smirk curling at the edge of his lips. He took a single step back before muttering, "You got lucky this time, but don't think this is over." John didn't move, his eyes locked onto the stranger's retreating figure until he finally disappeared into the swirling snow. Only then did the tight grip of tension release from his chest. He exhaled slowly, his heart still pounding. But when he looked down at Grace, the fierce German shepherd whose amber eyes burned like embers against the cold, he understood. She hadn't just fought against the ghosts of her past. She had defended the place she now called home. Grace turned back toward him, the fire in her gaze softening, as if she had finally found peace after the storm. The puppies, sensing the shift, scurried closer, no longer afraid. They knew, they felt, that they were safe now. John knelt beside Grace, gently resting his hand on her back, his voice warm with quiet gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, "for protecting them, for protecting us." In the silence that followed, with the snow falling around them and the storm fading into the distance, they stood together, not just as man and dog, but as something far greater, a family. Though dangers still loomed on the horizon, one truth remained unshakable. In this moment, they were strong, they were unbreakable, and they would never be apart again. On a gloomy morning, as thick fog clung to the treetops and icy winds wove through the barren branches, John suddenly noticed a shadowy figure at the edge of the forest. A stranger emerged, his face stern, his gaze sharp as a blade, moving slowly across the fragile layer of snow. He wore a worn-out coat, his rough hands bearing the weight of a past that seemed heavy with pain, as though every step he took carried the burden of untold suffering. Immediately, Grace, the steadfast German shepherd mother, reacted with fierce protectiveness. Her fur bristled, her ears stood tall, and she planted herself firmly beside John, her amber eyes locked onto the intruder's every movement. A deep, guttural growl rumbled from her chest, an unspoken warning that words could never match. This home was no longer a place of fear. It belonged to love, to safety, to the unwavering care that John had given them. The man took another step forward, his voice low yet dripping with an unmistakable threat. "Grace is mine. She belongs to me." The words hung in the freezing air, thick with unspoken history. It was as if even nature itself had paused, listening to the challenge laid before them. But John did not waver. He met the stranger's eyes and took a firm step forward, his voice steady, unwavering. "Grace doesn't belong to you. She was saved here. She was loved here. And she belongs with this family." Every word carried the weight of something greater than mere defiance. It was a vow, an unbreakable promise to protect the fragile lives that had come to rest in his hands. In that moment, Grace became even fiercer. She stood tall, her growls relentless, a living testament that no claim of ownership, no matter how forcefully spoken, could strip away the love and safety she had found with John. Her defiant growls merged with John's steady breath and the howling wind, forming a symphony of resilience and unwavering loyalty. The stranger faltered for a brief second. Something in his hardened expression wavered, as if, beneath his cold exterior, old wounds from a past long buried still refused to heal. Yet, his voice remained firm, though tinged with a reluctant defeat. "This isn't over." It was a warning, a shadow of a threat left lingering in the icy air, a promise that he might return. But John did not let fear take hold. He understood that this battle was not just between two men. It was a fight for something far greater, the courage to protect what was sacred, love, shelter, and the unwavering belief in a brighter future. And with Grace beside him, her unyielding gaze burning like embers in the snow, John knew one thing with absolute certainty. No matter how deep the past clawed at them, love and courage would always prevail. They would bring comfort and hope to those who had once been lost, just as they had for Grace. As winter slowly gave way to the warmth of spring, John's cabin transformed. Not just in the way the melting snow made room for vibrant life, but in the very heartbeat of the home itself. The once cold, quiet space now pulsed with renewed energy, with joy. Not only had the snow begun to fade beneath the golden touch of sunlight, but so had the pain and fear that once held Grace captive. Now, under the glow of a new season, she stood proudly, her coat sleek and shining like silk, her amber eyes no longer clouded by doubt, but filled with trust and unshakable spirit. With her playful, thriving pups at her side, she was more than just a survivor. She was living proof of the healing power of love. And John, watching them, understood that he hadn't just saved them. They had saved him, too. Every morning, As the first light of dawn chased away the night and golden rays filtered through the cabin windows, John stepped outside to embrace a world reborn. The cheerful chirping of birds blended harmoniously with the soft, playful barks of the puppies, echoing through the crisp air, a melody of happiness and new beginnings. In that moment, John realized that he hadn't just saved a life, he had rediscovered the meaning of his own. Through the hours spent together, he had come to understand that no matter how deep the scars of the past ran, love and hope would always be the most powerful remedies for a wounded soul. Though the shadows of past storms and painful memories still lingered at the edges of his mind, the small cabin had transformed into a sanctuary of warmth, light, and unwavering trust. John, with his heart open and his spirit renewed, had found a new purpose: to protect and nurture the fragile lives that had found their way to him, gradually erasing the pain of the past. The story of John, Grace, and her pups was more than just a tale of survival. It was a quiet, profound epic of redemption, a reminder that every day is a new beginning, and that love has the power to transform, to heal, and to restore faith in a future filled with boundless hope. Ultimately, the story of Grace, John, and the puppies reminds us that love and resilience have the power to change everything. If this story has inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below to share your thoughts. Together, we can spread meaningful stories that bring hope and light into the world. If this story has touched your heart, be sure to subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments below.